we don't go through this life without fear. There's literally no way around not being fearful at times, because like it says in there, it's a natural response. We're built to have fear because it can protect us. So the nice thing about having a logical brain as well is that then we get to decide after we feel that what we're going to do with that response. Are we going to run and avoid the thing that's in front of us, or are we going to tackle it? So we have to assess sometimes, is this going to hurt me? And when people get in the position where they're getting ready to, say, buy a very expensive property, it can scare them. And they've got to go through the what if I can't afford it? What if I buy it and then the tenants don't pay? All of these doubts can creep up. So it is important to do your research and find out what you can ahead of time. But once you've really annihilated the fears around whatever that is that popped up, and you have been able to determine if this is really a flight or fright situation, what you're going to do, there comes a point where you got to pull the trigger. You just have to get past some of these fears, or you're going to stay stuck. And that's really the truth of where we're at most of the times. Our success only goes in levels. So you'll hit a new threshold, and every time you hit a new threshold of success, it's a little scary. So, Steve, what do you have to speak to that one?
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think that one of the most important things to be able to move forward is to be able to identify what your fears are and to be able to figure out what is it that's keeping you from moving. Can you really get down and identify what fear actually you're dealing with? And so once you're able to do that, you're able to work with it and put it into the proper perspective, and then it no longer is something that would hold you back so much as something that actually it might even be able to help you out. And so we'll talk about how that happens further on in our discussion, but it's one of those things that if you have a proper perspective on what your fear is, then it no longer is the obstacle that it can be.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And honestly, because of that one, the slide that talks about the fear response, your pupils dilate, your heartbeat increases. Sometimes a little fear is motivational. So you can use it to your advantage if you just take some of that heightened sensitivity and use it to get stuff done, to move through things quicker, to use the adrenaline behind it to make some faster decisions and things like that. So fear itself is not a bad thing. Just like money is not bad. It's good or bad depending on how you use it. Same with fear. And who wouldn't be able to use a little bit of temporarily stronger and faster and more aware? Those are some pretty good things. So don't be afraid of fear itself. Definitely not a bad thing. Steve, how about you?
Yeah, and that's kind of a little bit of what I was alluding to, that fear is intended to heighten your performance in some areas. And so depending on how you react to what it is you're afraid of, it might be something that really works to your advantage. And so there have been a lot of people that have been able to look at that and to check into the physiological responses that happen when you click into the fear and use that actually as a springboard in order to enhance your performance. So if you're standing in front of an audience and you have a fear of public speaking, for example, you might be able to recognize that the fear can affect you in a couple of different ways, but one of the things that it could do is just to be able to heighten your awareness of your surroundings. It's going to heighten your performance. You're going to be able to think clearer, and you'll be able to speak. And so if you don't allow it to shut you down, which is the other response that can happen, is that you freeze up or you shut down, then you can use that fear and the adrenaline rush that it produces and all of the other physiological responses to actually do better than you would normally do.
So I want some participation. Hopefully you guys that are both here, you can give us a little bit of feedback. I'd like to make this more interactive tonight along the way if we can, so that you guys are engaging in what your fears are and working on overcoming them. So if you had to identify one of your biggest fears in front of you right now, what is it? And just type that over in the questions or the chat box. And we'll come back to that in just a second and address it. All right, we've got one. Fear of not being capable, not very outgoing. Okay, Steve, let's address that more like a coaching session. How, if someone comes to you, do you tell them to get over the fear of not being outgoing?
Well, well, that's kind of a long discussion. Yeah, part of what I would want to dig into is, how does that fear show up? And what are the situations that you find yourself reacting to? Mm-hmm. And then just try to dig in and find out really what the fear is. Because it's a little bit deeper than just that shallow definition. And so we want to dig in a little bit deeper and find out what's going on in there and what the fear is, and see if we don't have a way to work around that. So the other thing that you can do to help work on that is you can go through a series of visualization kind of techniques. Put yourself in some situations that are kind of low-grade exposure situations, so that you're not overwhelming yourself, but you're kind of easing into it, and then progressively build on that to where you can be able to be full-on in any of those situations and have developed coping mechanisms to be able to allow that fear to actually be your friend rather than your foe.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I learned this from someone who had studied NLP, which is a technique that people use kind of like psychology, I guess is the way I'd sum it up. But there are techniques that they use to get people past their fears and to be able to identify core beliefs and things like that. And it was the most simply put way that I've ever heard this, even though I've heard this thing in many different settings. The guy that taught me said, everything that you feel as a negative emotion is based in a thought. So if you can identify where those thoughts are coming from, you can change your thoughts, therefore change your response and change that negative emotion. So if you feel like I'm so shy, I'm never going to be able to make good connections, the best thing you can do is take action on that, change the thought, literally tell yourself, I will make good connections. I can, I will, I am, and then you get busy doing that. And in the activity of doing those things that you're afraid of, you actually overcome all of those fears that hold you back. So anything about I'm not very capable, I would encourage you to find ways that you have been capable. Where are you capable in your life currently? How did you get there? Were you capable of that when you came out of the womb, or did you develop that over time? Because all of these skills that you need for real estate can be developed, every single one of them. I was extremely shy when I started doing Mary Kay sales in my about mid-20s. I hadn't sold a thing in my life that I was aware of, although we are all natural-born salespeople. We sell our parents on things till we get shut down enough that we give up, right? But we come out saying, I need to be fed. I need this. You might cry to get what you want. You might go and take what you want, but one way or another, you're getting what you want. So there are things that we're naturally born with, and sometimes those things just kind of get snuffed out. So you have to go back and figure out what caused that, heal it, forgive it. And if there was somebody involved in it besides you, definitely forgive them as well, not just yourself. But there are ways past fears all the time. So that's why we're doing this tonight, is to help you guys get past those. This isn't just a woohoo, what a great concept. This is a take action kind of webinar. So if you don't want to stay stuck, change your thoughts. Change the behaviors by changing the thoughts. And don't think I'm any different than you guys. I've had plenty of my own fears that have gotten me to this level, and I will have plenty more in the future that I'm going to have to do the same process with. Well, why would I think that? Why do I think I'm not capable? Where does that come from? Is it reality, or is it just my crazy thinking? So what you'll find is generally what's holding you back is your own crazy thinking. Everything else, networking with people, finding good deals and running numbers, analyzing properties, Even if you're not good at numbers, there are little calculators out there. There are so many tools and so many things available for every single thing that you think is a hurdle to investing, to starting a business, to becoming successful, to reining in your budget, to creating wealth. All of it is just step by step by step, and there's literally nothing that you cannot overcome in this world if you want to bad enough. Steve, do you have anything about that?
No, I think that's good.
You what?
I said, no, I think you covered it well.
I covered it maybe too much. We got a lot of slides to get through, but but I feel very strongly about this, and probably because I'm going through this myself, hitting my next threshold. So we hit a threshold of success. We've never been past it, and it brings up new fears or old fears coming back again. And then you determine if you're going to get past those or stay stuck. So it's this constant level of progression, up, 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 if you choose to make it that way. And because I'm doing that, and I see so many people around me not willing to do that, I'm a little frustrated with the people choosing to stay stuck right now. So I have to forgive that and let them be where they're at. But that is my frustration you hear in my voice right now, is that there are too many people stuck in too many places that they say they don't want to be in, and it's fixable and it's changeable. So if that's any of you that's listening right now, take action. That's my message to you tonight. So here's a comment that came in, taking action without knowing what I'm doing. Okay, let's talk about that. People burning you, people manipulating you. Is part of this a possibility of happening in the future? Are there any protections that you can take to at least alleviate, if not completely eliminate, their ability to burn you or manipulate you, say in a real estate transaction? So type in there what comes to you in your thoughts, in the spirit. If you want to pray about it, you can pray quickly. Sometimes the Lord just immediately downloads things to your brain. Sometimes you get inspiration so that you can get past these things. And I find when you're really, really ready for the answers, they show up. So let's talk about, like we did at the very beginning, what can you do to take action? You're not going to be able to stop everybody else from doing crazy things, it's true. But there are certain protections you can put in place that should at least protect you, if not completely, to a large degree. And then part of that is just saying, you know what, it could happen, but do I believe I am strong enough to get past that? Do I believe that I'm going to be able to forgive them if they do that? So it's going to be two-sided. It's going to be the front side of preparation and protection, and the back side of forgiveness, fixing it and moving on. So let's go into this part about feeling immobilized. What is it that makes you guys feel like you're stuck? Can you identify that? Maybe these same thoughts that you're having, maybe these same fears, but literally if you can identify what it is. So I'll tell you, I did some really deep soul searching over the weekend, and I was frozen up by the fear of being alone. How does that relate to real estate? What does loneliness have to do with anything? Well, it has to do with everything in my world, because we all have our own things that stop us. The freezing up part. And I share that with you guys because if I freeze up too much in loneliness, then not only can I not coach well, I can't parent well, I can't love well, and I can't do real estate well. So I have to tackle those disconnections in my life. So if you guys can get to the point where you can identify it, at least I'm at the place where I can identify it, because once it's identified, I can do something about it. If I don't know what's causing it, I don't even know if I can change it. I might randomly, accidentally change it for a little bit, but it'll come back again. So finding out what it is and going in there and healing that. That's what overcoming fear is all about. It's looking at it, figuring it out, doing something about it. I hope you guys are getting that message loud and clear.
Can I add something there, Christine?
Yes, please.
So if you look at this picture here, you got Hagar at the edge of the cliff. He's got this whole army coming after him. There's two guys standing there, and Hagar all of a sudden realizes he's got this fear of heights, right? The point here is that you really want to be able to recognize exactly what it is you're afraid of. I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. So let's say that your job entails picking up the phone and calling somebody, but you're afraid to do that. If you look at why you don't do it, it boils down to, I'm afraid to do that. Okay, so what's behind that fear? maybe what's behind that fear is that what you're really afraid of is rejection. You don't want to be told no. Maybe you're afraid that you will succeed, and that if you do really well today, that's going to create an expectation that you can do that every day, and you don't feel like you can do that. Maybe the fear is actually about something entirely different. Maybe it's just about failure itself. Maybe you have a business model that you're wanting to follow, but you're afraid to find out that it won't work. And so all those things play into whether or not you're ready to pick up the phone and actually make a phone call. But as long as all you think is that you're afraid to make the call, or you don't want to make the call, you're resistant to the call, so you get down to the reasons why, so you examine the reasons why, you don't have a way to address it, like Christine was saying. You have to know, what is this thing about rejection? Why am I afraid of being rejected? Why do I care with somebody who I will never meet in my entire lifetime and possibly will never speak to again? Why do I care what they think about me when I make this phone call? And when you can get down to that core belief that's keeping you back, now you've got a chance to correct it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You know, I've had both of these things that you're talking about, Donald, happen to me. The being taken advantage of and being manipulated in business, that's been something I've had to tackle at a deeper level with personal growth. And not just with contracts and papers, but really understanding how that happens. So that combination of being wise and mindful, going into partnerships a little bit more carefully, and then having the paperwork to back it up is important. It's true. But these things we're talking about right now, the personal growth part of being successful, it's really critical. And that's why we put it into the webinar series of success mindset. You know, a lot of people are successful, but they lose the money later because they don't have the interpersonal skills or any skills at all, really, that are foundational to keeping money or managing money. So this is the issue that we all struggle with at some point or another, in different ways. Some struggle quite a bit, some struggle a little teeny bit. But these are not unusual things that we all deal with. This is very much a human experience and a human topic that we're doing tonight. So if you guys feel like you're resistant to change, make sure that you're looking at where your life is and deciding, do you want to stay there? Because all change is a little scary, and that's even good change. We're just not really creatures of change. We are pretty resistant to it overall. So whether it's a good change or a bad change, just know that we like to feel safe. And things that are normal and predictable and happen all the time in our world that becomes common becomes what we call safe. So unless you're willing to get out of your safety zone, you're going to stay where you're at. If you don't willfully choose out of that situation, something might try to react on you to move you out of that, because change will come your direction. So I, for one, would rather personally embrace it and move forward with it, even though that's painful, because the pain of change of something inflicted on me is always worse. So remember, when the teacher speaks, it's always stuff that they've dealt with, either past or present. That's really what we're telling you, is we know this road is not easy, but we do know it's possible. So this need for predictability, it's especially bad with women. I'll tell you, women like to feel safe and protected in general way more than men do. So if you're nervous of the change, number one, that's why we're here to help you through it. That's why we are a mentoring company. But number two, if you stay stuck because of your fear, I really want you to look at that life that's going to create for you and decide if you're happy with that or not. Steve, do you have anything to say maybe about abuse, let's say, as an example? So somebody's in an abusive relationship. Why do they stay? Why in the world would they stay in that kind of a relationship?
For a number of reasons. One is that, people oftentimes, choose the enemy they know than the one that they don't know. It's a lot about the fear of the unknown. So if you're in an abusive relationship, what does it mean to get out? Can I support myself? Are they going to come hunting me down later anyway? There's a lot of things that could be part of that. But it also just has a lot to do with, I understand the situation that I'm in, I can deal with it, I hate it, but I know it. And so people are willing to stay there rather than risk getting into something that they might feel is worse.
Yep, very much. So when you guys are looking at some of your self-sabotaging behaviors, look at maybe how you continue to spend the same, how you continue to avoid the phone calls, how you get assignments to go to a real estate investing club, or maybe to calendar and manage your time better so you can make the time to go and create your business or grow it. And when you see those self-sabotaging behaviors, you'll know you're onto something. If you can identify them, now again, just like any other kind of fear, procrastination is just a different way to tackle the fear. So it's trying to avoid the fear, but the fear is still there. So you're trying something that's really ineffective. If you want to be successful, the need to stop procrastinating and the need to stop sabotaging your business is really important. Another thing that you have possibly facing you right now is indecision. Should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? Well, if you don't make a decision, where are you going to stay? Stuck exactly where you are, unless something acts upon you again, and then you're going to get changed in a direction you probably don't like again. So indecision arises from another fear. The fear of being wrong, the fear of worrying. What if I screw it up? Well, what if you do? We screwed up a lot of things when we were little. We fell off our bike. We spilled our food when we were trying to learn how to eat. We tripped in front of people and we were embarrassed because we couldn't walk exactly right. There are tons of things that we have already overcome. We have already moved past the basic childhood lessons, and now we're into adult lessons. So what are those adult lessons? How many people do you know that are super, super successful? And what percentage of people are still stuck doing the same old, same old, same old? If you have a lot of fire that's burning inside of you telling you that you need to move on, it's time to move on. You've got to take action. Well, you don't have to, you can stay stuck, but if you want to be successful, you've got to take action. And Steve, since you always have these cute little cartoons in here, I'm going to let you walk through this because I'm kind of in a serious mood. We probably need a little laugh break anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is from Jungle Book. So these guys are just sitting around wondering what they're going to do. And they're always asking, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? And the fact is that none of them can decide on what to do, so they end up not doing anything. And that's kind of real for a lot of us. If we can't make good decisions about what we're going to do, if we don't plan stuff out ahead of time, we end up not doing anything, or we end up doing things that are wasteful, not focused, and don't get us to where we really want to go. No. And so the key to getting through the indecision part is good planning, and then just act on your plan, rather than have to, in the moment, have to figure out what I'm going to do next. You should already have it figured out. That would be helpful. I wanted to make one other comment about the procrastination. Procrastination is a lot about the fear of change. And you may wonder, fear of success even. And sometimes people will have this deep fear, an understanding even, that when you change, and your situation changes, and your money situation changes, your relationships change. And that's not something a lot of people are comfortable with. And so if you find you're procrastinating, there's a good chance that your procrastination is really part of you acting out in order to keep yourself from changing, even in a way that you really want to go. And so think about that. Try to figure out where you procrastinate and see what those kind of actions, or lack of action in this case may be, what's that keeping you from? And why would you be afraid of that?
Yeah. Yep. Can you see the pattern? I hope you guys are getting it. Some of it, when I say this kind of stuff, it's from one direction, then another direction, then another direction. I could use a little feedback right now to see what else you guys need, because for me, I have to tackle it a lot of different directions because I have several of these fears, right? When I was younger, it was fear of rejection. Thank goodness I got over that one. But I didn't get through it until I faced it, and I went and I got some rejections, but I learned how no doesn't mean no to me. I don't have to take it personally. It just means no to the opportunity, or no to the opportunity right now, or maybe that investor doesn't want that type of property, but they want a different type. There are a lot of different ways that I've had to overcome my fears. So fear of rejection, fear of failure, holy Toledo, that one's just been huge in my life. But thank goodness I've had enough successes I can rely on that. And that's one thing I want to reiterate again to you. Some of this stuff is very related. Some of it you might say, she already said that. But even if you hear the same thing 3-4 times, does it mean that you got it? Not necessarily. So I just want to tell you something like that. Let's take something as big as fear of success. You know, some of the thoughts back here in the back of my head that were stopping me is, oh, well, people are just going to think I'm stuck up if I have a lot of money. Or if I drive a nice car, people are going to just think I always have money, and they're going to ask me for money all the time, and I don't like to say no. So these kinds of thoughts that go through our minds are the things that hold us back. So I had to look at it and say, for example, well, my brother-in-law and my sister are really rich, but you know what? They still clip coupons. They still donate to the poor. They still take their kids out and do things with them. There are a lot of things that rich people don't do that I judged that they do. So I had to first release my judgment against them before I could allow money to flow into my life more freely. And I'll tell you, it's as broad as this kind of a difference to go from not even being able to ask. I remember the moment I was sitting there after one of my first Mary Kay presentations at somebody's house. I did a home party, and I remember thinking, I can't even ask that girl if she wants that mascara she seemed to like a lot. I literally could not ask her if she would like to buy it or take it home with her. And that's all they trained us to do. Would you like to take that home with you today? Okay, here's how much it will be. How hard is that? Well, for me, it was impossible. I didn't ask for the sale. So I got a couple sales, but if I had asked, I probably would have gotten twice as many sales. Fast forward to some other training, to motivational training, to mindset training, to success training. When I hit that mark of being able to say, you know what, I made more this year than I ever made before. I wonder if I can ever make 6 figures. And then the crazy thoughts start happening, right? Well, I'm just a lady. Well, I'm not very good at sales. Well, all the stupid thoughts. And so I had to get past those. So how does a person that can't even ask for a $10 mascara sale go to make 6 figures later in her life in 1 year? Mind you, this didn't take forever. It was a good year. The first time I hit that mark, I thought, wow, that was no different than making $50,000 a year. It literally was no different. It's just that I had different thinking, but the things I did were basically the same. But I didn't stop the money from coming in. I didn't say no, and I wasn't subconsciously rejecting a lot of it. So if you have never hit a mark outside of your comfort zone like that, I challenge you. I challenge you to decide how much you want to make and go for that level. If you have what Steve talked about earlier, and that's a plan, it will help. So if you plan not only how are you going to make the money, but where is that money going to go? And that's a whole nother webinar. We'll get into that later, but in the nutshell, let's say, if you tell your money where to go, so I knew I'd have some money at the end of that year, and I wanted to put it into my first IRA or 401k. So I had a place for some of that money to go that I knew I couldn't touch. That way, when somebody asked for it, I didn't have to give it to them. It was already gone. Okay, what if you take 25% of your income and you use it onto down payments and rentals? Well, now that money is seed, and that seed is growing and producing, so you have cash flow. So pretty soon you have maybe $300 of cash flow on one property and $500 on another and $150 on another, and you are growing your retirement. This is how it happens. You plan where that money goes, you execute the plan, and pretty soon you're on your path. It's step by step by step.
You mentioned earlier that you can actually use fear as a tool, and I'm going to take a couple quotes from Susan Jeffers, who wrote a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And she said that the only way to get rid of the fear of doing something is to go out and actually do it. And so that might be a little bit spooky, to realize that getting through the fear means that you actually need to go through it. But you don't have to take it all on at once. You can take it in smaller doses and work your way up. But just come to understand that facing the fear is the best way to actually deal with it and get it to where it's no longer crippling. So keep that in mind. There's a couple of thoughts about fear. And I really like this cat. He's walking in front of this line of police dogs, and as if he just owned the place. And in normal situations, you wouldn't see a cat doing that, but this is a courageous cat. But just a couple of thoughts. Sometimes you hear about people that are very courageous, and I really like the idea that courage isn't really the absence of fear. Courage is being able to recognize that fear is there, and then you take the appropriate or proper action in spite of the fact that you feel the fear. So the key to overcoming fear is to develop courage. And so when you come to an understanding of that, and you can bolster yourself up to create that courage to go through it in spite of the fear that you feel, that's where you find progress. That's where you're going to find some success. So one definition of fear is that it's false evidence appearing real. And a lot of times what we're afraid of, what we think we're afraid of, isn't really even what we're actually afraid of. And sometimes the fears that we have, we've built up in our mind, we've created anxiety over some things that really won't come to pass. They're not going to manifest. There are things that we get all concerned and wrapped up about, even though they haven't happened yet. And in some cases, they're not even likely to happen. Just the fact that there's a possibility that could happen sometimes is what people wrap their minds around, and that keeps them from taking action. So fears tend to flee in the face of truth. The more information you can gather about something, the less fear that you're going to have. So getting the fear out on the table and examining it and looking at what the real truths are in the situation can sometimes be a really great way to diffuse fear and keep it from being a problem for you. So there's a fellow named Chris Winfield. He wrote an article called 3 Things That Stop Most People from Achieving Their Goals. And he talked a lot about fear. And so one of the things is that we have these thought patterns that develop. We have these negative thoughts. We hang on to those, whether they're real or they're imagined, and they're going to block us from moving forward. And all the reasons why you shouldn't attempt your goal, all the rationalizations of why your goal is impossible to achieve, those are the negative things that come in. And so we want to be able to get to the point to where we don't accept that as real. It's information coming in, and we're going to figure out how we're going to deal with that. Words are really powerful. And one of the things that we need to recognize is that our vocabulary affects our reality. So if you're looking at things as though they're problems rather than opportunities, that's kind of how they're going to manifest in your life. On the other hand, if you look at problems, if you look at challenges, if you look at opposition as opportunities, then they will become opportunities, not stumbling blocks. And so there's a gift, as Susan Jeffers says, in life's obstacles. And as you discover those, then you're going to be able to create sources of power, sources of influence. We've said in times past in different webinars that we've done that obstacles, challenges, problems are all opportunities for you to be able to make money. And the more difficult problems that you can deal with, the more valuable you become in the marketplace. So actually where you would like to be is in a place where you can get thrown challenges, obstacles, opposition, and yet be able to figure out how to handle those things and turn them into the opportunities that can help you to be really successful. If you're able to do that, or to the degree that you're able to do that, it is really going to be a measure of how successful you can be in life. and how lucrative an income you can create by being able to solve big problems. People that only can solve small problems end up with smaller incomes. So you might think of that as a way to maybe even welcome challenges, obstacles, problems, and things to deal with. So some of the roadblocks that we face are actually very real. So if you think about the considerations that we talked about, the thoughts that come in, the fears that pop up, a lot of those things are just the way we think about things, and they're only going to be in our mind. However, there are some real roadblocks out there that you will have to deal with. They're unpredictable. They will show up, and you just simply need to know how to work around or through or go under or over whatever that obstacle happens to be. And again, as you do that, you're going to be able to find solutions that will help you to become very successful, not only in your own life, but in anything that you want to achieve. And so this is a quote from Michael Jordan, who has seen his share of success, but he had to go through some significant challenges in order to get there. And he's talked about how many shots he's missed, how many game-winning shots he has missed. And there's a bunch of them. But on the other hand, he's probably got more game-winning shots than anybody else around. Why? Because he has the courage to take the shot. And he's the kind of guy that at the end of the game, he's wanting the ball. He wants it. He wants that challenge. And sometimes he hits it, sometimes he doesn't. But anybody else that's out on that floor on his team is going to want him to have that ball, and everybody on the other side is going to want him to not have the ball because they know the odds are pretty good that he's going to hit that and make that work. So roadblocks, you want to deal with those by being persistent. Keep hitting it over and over and over again. Break it down. And never give in, never give up, never surrender. That's kind of the motto. So however gloomy it looks, hang on and do your best to keep hitting the obstacles so that you can come out on top. So you don't need to give up on your dreams and your goals. And sometimes I know the people have. If you think about the dreams and the goals that you've had in your past, how many dreams and goals have you had that now, where you're sitting right now, you're saying, well, that's not even possible anymore. That's not true. Unless you had an unrealistic goal to begin with, like say you wanted to be on a space shuttle to the moon, if you've had a goal that even seemed like it was out of reach, but it was realistic, that's still a possibility. So don't give up on your dreams. Just don't let fear steal from you. And don't let the considerations, fears, and roadblocks that are all part of what we all go through keep you from getting where you need to go. And again, like we were saying in the beginning, the better job you do of identifying those and being able to work through those, the more challenges and obstacles you'll be able to overcome. So what would like you to do with this information is to go back and just look at your goals and identify what kind of considerations, what kind of thoughts, what kind of negativity pops up, what fears pop up for you, and then look at what you can do to address those fears. And identify the things you've been procrastinating on and create a plan to annihilate that from your path. And so if I know there's things that I need to be doing that I haven't been doing, that's a good target for me to start looking at. And one of the things that you may want to look at doing is creating a pattern of success for yourself. So a lot of people that are really good at procrastinating are going to find lots of things they've been procrastinating on. And I would encourage you to pick a few, maybe pick 3 that you have absolute control over, that you're not dependent on anybody else for, and make a promise to yourself that you're going to fulfill the commitment on that. So if you are wanting to, if you've been procrastinating on something that involves a partner or a spouse, you don't have control over that. So don't start with that. Start with something like, maybe what time you wake up in the morning. It could be something as simple as something you're already doing every day, but make yourself some promises that you're going to follow through. And as you do that, you start to build that muscle of integrity. And piece by piece, you put that together and create that habit of following through and not deceiving yourself and not following through on things that that need to be done and things that you really want to have happen. And so if you find that you've got some big things that you've been procrastinating on, practice on a few smaller things. Build that muscle and then go tackle the big tough stuff. And I think you'll find that you can develop those kind of habits and create some really nice things. So we have several programs in our coaching that would like to invite you to check into. We have programs around real estate investing, life coaching, and business coaching. And each of those have several different programs in them that you'd be able to check into. And we just want to be able to open those doors for you. We hope you find some things of value here. We can't go into the kind of detail that we'd like to, just because of time restrictions. But if you want more detail on those kind of things, then you may want to check into the webinar series that we have, and you'll be able to find some a lot more in-depth information on those things that would be helpful. So let's just open this up to any Q&A. You guys have any questions, things that you'd like to address? All right, well, if we don't have any questions, then let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let me just say that it's good to have you guys here. And I recognize that you guys have been here before. You're kind of some of the core of what we do here. We appreciate you being here. I hope you found something valuable. If you did, drop us a note, let us know. That would be helpful. We'd just like to be able to see you guys make some progress, and especially in the area of fear, because it seems to be such a basic concept and such an obstacle for so many people. And if we can help you overcome some of that and put you on a path where you become more successful, we would be totally stoked about that, and would love to be able to be a part of that kind of growth. So thank you, Araceli, thank you for being here, and Dom, and we will see you guys next time. Take care and have a great night.